The great palace of Jira was silent except for the soft hum of energy lines that ran through its marble walls. Captain Elias Ward stood in the center of the grand hall, surrounded by guards with silver armor and glowing blue spears. He had come from Earth under a white flag, yet he felt more like a criminal than a messenger. His heart beat fast, his hands shook, and his breath came slow and shallow. Ahead of him was the throne. On it sat the alien queen, tall, graceful, and terrifying. She was the ruler of the Jiran Empire, a race feared by nearly every world in the galaxy. Her dark crown shimmered under the palace lights, and her eyes were bright gold, cold and sharp like molten metal. But Elias did not only see a queen. He saw the memory of a woman he once saved. Years ago, during the last Galactic War, he had found her ship crashed on a frozen moon. Back then, she was just another wounded being, proud, injured, and alone. He had carried her for days through snow and storm until help came. She never thanked him, not in words, but she had looked at him once with eyes that said more than any language could. Now she sat high above him, distant and powerful. Time had changed her, and perhaps it had changed him too. He was no longer the soldier who had carried her. He was an ambassador now, sent by Earth to negotiate peace. Yet when he saw her again, his legs almost failed him. The guards turned and left the room as she raised one slender hand. The tall doors closed with a deep echo, and silence filled the hall. Only Elias and the queen remained. For a long moment she did not speak. She simply studied him, her golden eyes searching every line of his face. When she finally rose from her throne, her movement was slow, deliberate. She descended the steps, her long cloak trailing behind like mist. When she spoke, her voice was calm, yet every word carried quiet power. "You return to my world," she said, "after breaking the oath you once swore to me. You step on my ground again after the peace I allowed your people. Tell me, human, do you remember what you promised me?" Elias wanted to answer, but his throat tightened. He could feel the weight of her presence pressing down on him like the gravity of a planet. He forced himself to breathe, to speak. "I remember everything," he said softly. "But I didn't come to break peace. I came to save it." The queen stopped halfway down the stairs. Her gaze sharpened. "Save it," she repeated. "You speak as if you still hold that power." Her words cut through him. He bowed his head slightly, trying to find his courage again. "I don't," he said. "But you do." Her eyes flickered, a small flash of something almost human in them. Confusion, maybe, or memory. "Me?" she said quietly. "After all that your kind did? After the battles, the lies, the fire?" Elias lifted his eyes. "Yes, because you are not like them. Because I've seen who you truly are." The queen turned away, walking toward the wide glass wall behind her throne. Beyond it stretched the capital of Jira, towers of crystal, rivers of light, and skies filled with flying ships. Yet her gaze seemed far beyond the city, lost in another time. He took a small step forward, unsure if he was allowed to move closer. His voice softened. "Do you remember the frozen moon?" She did not answer, but her fingers tightened around the edge of her cloak. "You were injured," he continued quietly. "Your ship was destroyed. Your people were gone. I carried you through a storm that lasted 4 days. We had no heat, no food, no light, only a broken beacon that barely worked. You said I was a fool to try to save you." Her head turned slightly, her golden eyes meeting his reflection in the glass. "And you said," she whispered, "that humans never abandon those who cannot walk." Elias smiled faintly. "Then you remember." The queen turned fully now, for the first time since he entered the room. Her expression softened. "I remember more than you think," she said. Her voice was no longer cold. "But tell me, why have you really come here, Captain Ward? Speak truth before I decide your fate." He took a deep breath. "Because the galaxy is dying," he said. "Systems are collapsing. The core fleets are losing power, and the Alliance believes that only your empire still has the resources to stop it. Without Zira's help, every inhabited world, including Earth, will fall into chaos." The queen's eyes narrowed again, the warmth fading. "So now the humans come crawling to the queen they once tried to destroy," she said bitterly. "Is that why you were sent to beg?" "No," Elias said quickly. "To ask." She approached him slowly, step by step, until she stood close enough for him to see the faint silver marks on her skin, signs of old wounds that no crown could hide. "You come trembling before me," she said softly, "and yet you speak as if we are equals. Why do you shake, human? Is it fear?" His breath trembled as he met her gaze. "No," he said quietly. "It's because I never thought I'd see you again. Something inside her changed at those words. The proud queen's posture faltered just slightly. Her eyes softened for a heartbeat and she whispered, "You shouldn't have." "Maybe," he said, "but I had to try." They stood there in silence for a long time. The wind outside howled against the palace walls and lightning flashed across the alien sky. Finally, she broke the silence. "Do you know what I have become, Elias Ward?" she asked, her tone almost sad. He nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "You became what you had to be." Her golden eyes met his. "And you still see the woman from the frozen moon?" His answer came without hesitation. "Always." The queen turned her face away, but not before he saw the flicker of emotion in her eyes. "Then you are a fool," she said quietly. "I've been called worse," and he said with a faint smile. That earned a small, breathless sound from her. Not quite laughter, but close. It was the first time he had ever heard warmth in her voice again. For a few moments they simply stood there, two souls bound by memories they could not escape. The queen finally walked back to her throne and sat down, though her posture was less proud now, more thoughtful. "You come with words of peace," she said. "Yet peace has cost me more than war ever did." Elias bowed his head. "I know. And that's why I came to you. Not as a soldier, but as a friend." Her golden eyes flicked toward him again. "A friend," she repeated softly, almost testing the word. "Yes," he said. "Someone who once carried you through a storm. Someone who still believes in you." The hall grew quiet again. Outside, the storm rolled away, leaving the faint glow of twin moons shining through the palace glass. The queen's voice lowered to a whisper. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "the galaxy is not the only thing that needs saving." Elias looked up at her, unsure if he had heard her correctly. But she had already turned away, hiding her face behind the shimmer of her crown. And though he stood still and silent, his heart began to steady. For the first time since he stepped into that hall, his hands stopped shaking. He didn't know what would happen next, whether he would leave as a prisoner or a guest. But he knew something had changed. The Queen of Jira had remembered not the war, not the politics, but the promise that once connected two souls under a frozen sky. And deep inside her, beneath the armor of a ruler, the Queen of Jira sat silently on her throne, her golden eyes focused on some distant point in the grand hall. Captain Elias Ward stood before her, still trembling slightly, though his resolve had begun to solidify. Outside, the palace city sparkled under the twin moons, but the beauty of it was lost on him. All he could see was the queen, the woman he once saved, and the enormous responsibility resting on her shoulders, a responsibility he hoped she would accept. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she leaned forward slightly, her fingers resting lightly on the arm of her throne. "You ask me to save a galaxy," she said softly. "After all that humans have done to my people, do you not understand the weight of such a task?" Elias straightened, gathering courage. "I do," he said, "and I understand that it is not easy, but I also know that you are not like them. You are capable of more than destruction. You are capable of hope." Her eyes flickered with a strange mixture of anger and curiosity. "Hope," she echoed. "A human word for a human dream. Do you think that your hope can sway a queen who has commanded fleets that destroy worlds?" "I know it can," Elias said firmly, "because I've seen it. I've seen who you are when no one else is watching. I've seen the woman who cared enough to let me live when she could have left me to die. That is the woman the galaxy needs now." The queen turned sharply, her golden eyes narrowing. "And why would I trust you, human? Why would I risk my empire for the lives of billions who do not care for mine?" Elias swallowed hard, his heart pounding. He took a step closer. "Because I am asking, not commanding. Because I came back despite fear and danger. Because I believe in what you can do. Not as a ruler, but as someone who once knew mercy and courage." The queen's expression changed subtly, though she tried to hide it. The memory of the frozen moon, of snow biting their skin and the darkness pressing in around them, came unbidden. She remembered the human who carried her, who had never faltered even when all hope seemed lost. She remembered the warmth of his hand, the trust in his eyes, the simple bravery that had saved her life. She turned her gaze to the palace doors, imagining the fleets, the dying stars, the worlds on the brink. "You speak of courage," she said quietly, almost to herself. "But courage is nothing without power to act." Elias's voice was steady now. "You have that power. You have the resources, the fleets, the knowledge."
"And you have me. Someone who believes in you, who will support you.
The galaxy cannot wait any longer. We need you. For the first time in years, the Queen felt uncertainty. She had been so used to controlling everything, to being the strongest presence in every room, in every battle. Yet this human, small and fragile in appearance, dared to stand before her and speak not as a subject, but as someone who trusted her entirely. She rose from her throne, her cloak brushing the marble floor. She walked slowly toward him, her eyes never leaving his. "You are bold," she said, her voice low but firm. "You risk everything to speak to me like this." "Why?" Elias met her gaze, no longer trembling. "Because I know the truth," he said. "The galaxy is not lost. Not if you are willing to lead it. Not if you are willing to remember the woman who once cared for one human enough to risk everything. You are stronger than you realize. Not because of fear or fleets, but because of your heart. And your heart can save billions." The Queen stopped just a few steps away from him. She studied his face carefully, seeing the determination, the sincerity, and the unwavering belief he had in her. For a long time she said nothing, letting the silence fill the hall. Then, almost imperceptibly, she extended her hand. Not in command, not in threat, but in a gesture of trust and connection. Elias stepped forward, meeting her hand with his own. The warmth of her touch was both foreign and familiar, like a memory long buried. "Do you truly believe?" she whispered, "that one human's faith can guide a queen?" "I do," he said simply, "because it has already guided you before." Her golden eyes glistened, and for the first time in years she allowed herself a small, unguarded smile. "Perhaps," she said softly, "the galaxy is not the only thing that needs saving." Elias nodded. "And perhaps it is not too late." They stood together in silence, two beings from entirely different worlds, bound by a shared history and a new mission. The storm outside had faded completely, leaving only the calm of the twin moons and the quiet glow of the city below. The Queen straightened, her posture regaining its regal strength, though there was a subtle softness now in her expression. "Then we act," she said firmly. "We save what can still be saved. Together." Elias felt a surge of relief and hope. He had not only reached her, but he had awakened something in her. A spark that could illuminate even the darkest corners of the galaxy. "First," the Queen continued, "we must rally the fleets. We must convince our generals, the Council, and the allies of Jira that this path is right." Elias nodded. "I will help," he said. "I will go wherever you lead, whatever is needed." The Queen studied him for a moment, her golden eyes reflecting both caution and trust. "You have changed, Elias Ward," she said softly. "You are no longer the boy who carried me through snow and ice. You are now a man of vision, and yet somehow you have remained the same, brave, kind, and honest. I only followed what I learned from you," he said quietly. "Your example taught me courage, your mercy taught me hope." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Then perhaps the galaxy has more faith in humans than I ever did," she whispered. Outside, the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon. The city of Jira glowed in pale silver, ships preparing for departure, signals pulsing across the star systems. Inside the palace, two figures stood side by side, a human and a queen, bound by trust, memory, and a shared purpose. The Queen's voice broke the silence again. "We will face danger, Elias Ward. We will face enemies who do not wish to see peace, and we will face worlds that do not trust easily. But if we stand together, perhaps the impossible can be achieved." "Then we start," he said, feeling the weight of the moment. "One step at a time, one world at a time, until hope reaches every corner of the galaxy." For the Queen, the words resonated deeply. She had led wars, conquered planets, and ruled with an iron will, but never had she felt such hope. Hope that did not come from fear or power, but from the faith of a single human who had once trusted her when the universe seemed empty. She took a deep breath, standing taller, her golden eyes bright with determination. "Then let it be known," she said, "that Jira will no longer stand apart. We will act. We will fight for peace, and we will defend every world that cries for it." Elias felt his hand stop shaking completely now. He had seen the woman he saved become the queen he always knew she could be. A ruler not only of power, but of courage and hope. And for the first time in years, the alien queen allowed herself to feel something she had long forgotten. Trust in another being, belief in the future, and the warmth of connection that could transcend worlds. The twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting a silver light across the palace floor. Outside, ships stirred, Fleets moved, and the galaxy began to shift toward a fragile but real hope. Elias and the Queen stood together, side by side, ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would lead the galaxy not through fear, not through power, but through courage, mercy, and the quiet strength that could only come from the heart. In that moment, the human realized that shaking hands and trembling hearts did not mean weakness. It meant life, hope, and the beginning of something greater than either of them had ever imagined. And for the Queen, she realized that even the mightiest rulers sometimes needed the faith of a single human to remind them of who they truly were. Not just a queen, but a being capable of hope, courage, and change. Together, they would face the storm, and together they would shine as a light for every world waiting to be saved.